Hey, it's Chris. What are we doing? Crowdfunding, March. What's on my hotness? What do you need to know about them? All short and sweet, giving you everything you need to know, as much as I know, and a little bit of ramble, rant, and rave along the way. You ready? Hit the thumb button. Subscribe if you're not. Let's go. First up, you know what? Chip Theory, you've got me. Chip Theory, you've got me. I've got an email out to them about this, but Wroth, right? With a W. And this is Manny Tremblay and Chip Theory combining to make a fluorescent style area control game. Action selection under an hour. From the designer, I guess, there's some comments in the forum section saying this is the area control game for someone who didn't like area control games to begin with, right? That's me, right? And I'm intrigued. You know, you hit me up in this sweet spot of 1 to 4 players. I don't know how you do a 1-player game, but anyway, it's less than 60 minutes. Chip Theory level production and my, overall weight of a game. Sort of Wonderland's War, if you will. It's right over there offside the camera. That's why I did that. But more in a bite-sized, manageable time frame instead of like 2.5 hours, an hour. Okay, you know what? I have no clue if the gameplay is at all like that, but at least gives me aesthetically vibes that way. So that one is by far away, and actually right now, my most interested game. And partially that is because I know nothing about it. There's not a whole lot. They did a little live stream, but apart from that, I mean, they sent out the social media pics of prototypes being sent out at the time before me filming this. So by the time you're watching this, I would imagine we maybe have a little bit of content if they haven't been embargoed. And if they, have been embargoed, well then by the time you're watching this, there won't be anything out yet because it'll be a couple days before the launch because this one's at the beginning of the month. Now the second one up, again, I talked about this one in February. I left it on February just for the heck of it, but man, I just can't get enough of it. 2 to 4 player Wormwood, right? Expandable, but not really your TCG because that's otherwise I wouldn't be as big a fan of it. The expandable card game where you're going head to head, right? Sci-fi, variable powers, pan management, 1 of 8 factions, and you're going with a pre-built deck of 30 different cards specific to those factions, 20 cards of common cards to go along with it, and you get 10 echoes and you win the game. Specified even for multiplayer, up to 250 unique cards with a little bit of worker placement, CCG, double-sided card depending on how you're using it. But again, the aesthetic is just great from this aspect. And the concept, this is me, like 2-player battler. Now, if you can give me a 2-player battler that works at a 3 and a 4-player count, wow, folks, I'm really excited, right? Like that was, one thing I actually kind of like about Dice Throne in that sense that, the 3 of us, me and my 2 sons, can play that and have a relatively equal time. Now they they, knock me out first every single time, but you know what, so be it. And that's what I look at this only as more of an adaptable, a little bit more deeper mechanic style way with more of an Android Netrunner, asymmetric Imperium, the contention faction style situation. I'm throwing keywords there together to see what smashes and what hits, but that's the sort of feeling I get from this as a whole. 8 factions to go along with this from an asymmetric standpoint though, with some unique, some common, so some meta, some adaptability. Again, I'm super intrigued because the depth is present. So that's why it's near the top of this list again. The next one up, we'll just stay with this theme because that's Etherstone from Thunderglyph Games. And this one, again, is going to be launching, at the beginning of the month. And we're going to see, in this, again, a 2 to 4 player sort of, you get your faction asymmetric tailored leader, and you're going to be playing these cards based off of dice drafting, based off of the colors that they are, of one of, the followers, the rituals, the technologies, the tech trees, and gathering them in, summoning them, attacking and overcoming the threats that's at the center of the table, but also going after each other as well as you go. And so again, this was one I was really hoping to promo and demo for you guys on the channel, but that didn't work out. So I'm intrigued just alongside of you guys to see what this one has in store for us, because again, like I have a type, and these 2 games back to back are really my type. But that's also why Wroth is out there, because as much as I say stay within your lane, no, as much as I say we all have a type in terms of what we like and what we appeal to and what we're interested in, this actually also, Wroth-wise is something that I endorse, because I also say try new things, because sometimes you'll find something like Castles of Burgundy that you really, really love, even though you weren't expecting it, and that's kind of cool in the same way. Or El Grande, right? So that was those games for me. Then next up, I have a copy of this one though. Veiled Fate in the expansion, right? Veiled Fate is coming back. from Ivy Studios to crowdfunding, and they're going to give you more of a good thing. If you were a big fan of Veiled Fate originally, this is going to be offering you more. And I say not just one thing, but multiple ways of advancing, enhancing, and even improving the base game in the first place. And in case you're not familiar with what Veiled Fate was you essentially have this circular board that you were scoring around the outside, progressing from zone to zone. And depending on what zone you're in, you can move any of the said characters that you want to manipulate. But you're going to have one secret character who is the character that you ultimately are, and so you're trying to maneuver your opponents, but also not let them know who you are, because otherwise it's going to be, well, an issue. And you're going to be going zone to zone, reallocating, repurposing, and, just maneuvering, trying to position your own players, but who you think everyone else is as well. So this one, again, has a big following in terms of something that Ivy Studios has done differently, with sort of a, hidden deduction bluffing-esque mechanic, very similar to Fractured Sky, but in a completely different dynamic as well, with a little bit more meta and a little bit more of the werewolf-esque vibe, rather than the bidding auction style with Fractured Sky. So, this is probably one of, I think, their favorite games. I know Moonrakers is, high up there. Mythic Mischief, for me personally, is my favorite. But this is one that especially plays really, really well and fast at the higher player counts too. So that can't be discounted, because, this one is optimally even like 4, 5, or 6, which I can't say those things with the other ones that I just mentioned. So if you like the deluxeified, premium games coming to crowdfunding, you can see that this is already a month for you with Ivy Studios, as well as Chip Theory. And the other one coming up alongside that is Garphill. Garphill is also going to give us the third in the trilogy of the South Tigris, and that is Inventors of the South Tigris. Arguably, supposedly, supposed to be the heaviest of all of them. It has a 4 on Board Game Geek. I don't even know how that gets established this soon, but just the comments and the declarations and the hints at this as this is launching in March are going to be that, if the others are too heavy for you, well, you might want to pass on this one. And, as I always do, I give kudos for 3 things on crowdfunding. 1, true funding goals. 2, not stringing me along. And 3, saying, if you want to buy it elsewhere, that's okay too. And Garphill does that. They say, get us on retail, support us as a small indie publisher, or go buy it at retail when it comes out if you want, with a small promo pack and the coins that we offer each time. And you know what? This is one of those. And so the question just is, if you have the other 2 and they're not too heavy for you, with the mechanics listed on Board Game Geek at this time, there's going to be some sort of either deck bag or pool building. Again, it's not very clear, as well as hand management, obviously a heavy solo aspect of things, and track movement in a, Euro style game. Does this one interest you, right? Baghdad, homes of mathematicians, astronomers, chemists, and physicians, innovators, and new devices being created there all the time. Most victory points. That's all we know, though, in terms of literally going off of the Board Game Geek description at the time of you reading this. Train your craftspeople, develop their workshops, research and influence each of the 3 scientific guilds. So if you're a Garphill junkie, is this one an auto buy then? Like we have our auto junkies for some of the other ones. With Wroth, they actually said on the page for Chip Theory, they're going to have their strategist pledge, so you can still get in if you're one of those Chip Theory junkies. Garphill has their junkies. Stonemeyer has their junkies. Champions, I believe they're called, not junkies. I don't know why I'm using that term. It just kind of came out of my mouth. That's why I get in trouble on this channel. But that's another one of those things, right? Like the other thing I worry or wonder about with this is, again, how different is it going to be? And inevitably, are you going to have a favorite? And do you feel like you have the need to own them all? Because I see that more criticized with like dungeon crawlers and other things, and I don't see it necessarily always as critically disclaimed with Euros. But maybe, again, that's just purely my own bias, so I'm actually probably wrong on that, because I know you guys are discerning, and I know you guys wouldn't have games that significantly overlap and, things that are all too much similar. And, you guys wouldn't run into that and wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that either. So the other one that we have up that's coming up that I really am interested in is a completely other end of the spectrum in terms of the weight, and that's Allplay. And Allplay is bringing us Rivervalley Glassworks, where you essentially have this little river that gets little crystals on it, and you're going to be pulling them and then shifting the river in order to, fill in your own personal board, almost Azul style like, to give you ways of scoring rows, columns, just however you want to, color matching all along the sorts. And so this pushing of the river and drawing and putting new glass out into the river as you empty it just kind of seems like a cool mechanic. They show you pictures of the retail edition that they're going to do eventually, but the Founders Edition, they say, is going to have dual layer player boards, acrylic river tiles, neoprene mat, and something else. Probably a little expansion, because that's what Allplay does. They do a little mini expansion to throw it along in there in case you want to get the actual retail. Sort of like a version of what Flat Out Games does with things like Cascadia, right? Or Calico. They give you just a little bit enough to make you enticed that it's, you know, worth your while, but it's also not upsetting the apple cart on the retail side of things. So I'm really intrigued to see where that one goes. In addition, then next up, we're actually talking about Algae from Game Brewer, because this is another tile laying game that I'm kind of intrigued to see what they can do, because again, I'm not really sure, you know, the last one, Amygdala, really got the attention it deserved. I think it was a little probably too overcomplicated, but with this one, I mean, you're managing an algae factory, right? You're making algae into other things. Tech tree? Oh yeah. So like I said, you're just managing the algae factory tree line, essentially, and you're combining those resources on your unique asymmetric board, trying to get your processing line, keeping a close eye on your colleagues, though, because who knows what they want to do, and trying to basically adapt and unlock extra spaces, engineer tiles, science tiles, or just whatever else that's going to help you improve your actions on a turn-by-turn basis. And they call it a medium weight Euro from that aspect. No weight actually on Board Game Geek, but playing anywhere from an hour and a half to 2 hours is the listed play time for 2 to 4 players. So, you know, probably a little heavier than Amygdala, but definitely a lot of moving parts like Amygdala in that same sense. The question with the last couple of from Game Brewer has been really just been the pricing. And they went heavy acrylics, and then they had to relaunch with Amygdala. So I'm intrigued to see what they've got going on, and, you know, it's an interesting premise. I think it's just kind of cool. It's doing something different, but it is a nature-themed one again, folks. Boom, 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 boom. Not like that's the theme of the last 2 years, but that's totally for sure the last theme that we've seen dominating the airwaves. But now, again, going back to the super heavy side of things, this has probably been the most hyped, the most talked about on social media, on the content creator side of things from a heavy Euro aspect, and this is coming up from Kinson Key Games. This is their first release, I believe, of called Galactic Cruise, where you're building your own shuttle, passenger-wise, sending them into space and managing them on space vacations. I mean, heavy Euro? Yeah, I mean, you're doing everything that you would imagine, sort of a la a Lacerda style. It has a very aesthetically similar vibe, and mechanistically, they're going that way, it seems like, with that approach. You're competing against your fellow supervisors, getting your company goals, as well as earning progress, you know, throughout the game, launching more shuttles, placing your spaceships wherever they need to go, and going to various destinations where your guests are going to actually reward you based on how you get them there in the first place. So I expect this one to get heavy-handed hype, folks. This is probably, you know, the most hyped game I've seen on my side of things in the last, you know, couple months even, and they've done a great job of drumming up the hype and the hotness from that aspect of things. So, you know, if this looks anything like the ones we've seen from the past couple years of like Darwin's Journey or Carnegie, I mean, it's giving me similar vibes to those in the Lacerdas. So if you are one of those people, similar, maybe a slight overlap, I don't know, is there an overlap between the people who like the heavy Garphills and the heavy Lacerdas? Like, I always, like, in my mind, apparently, like, have those separated out. Like, those are two distinct, like, heavier Euro group people. But I'm assuming there has to be a significant Venn diagram, right? Right? Tell me I'm wrong. And so that's the question. Can you get both of these? What's going to be more appealing to you? Do you have a thematic incorporation preference? And does it really matter thematically? Are you just happy with giving those mechanisms and seeing the gears churn and the wheels burn and the hamster just dying in the wheel as you're trying to process and analysis paralysis the heck out of this thing? So that one is by far and away going to be probably the most hyped, at least that I have seen so far. We'll see what comes out in the next couple weeks, though. Then also similarly, from the designer, from the maker of Feudum, we're getting a game called Fled. And I will have a video out on this one. And this one is actually going into sort of a heavier, thinkier tile laying game where you are trying to escape from a penitentiary, and you're going to be managing tiles, laying down on a board simultaneously, well, not simultaneously, but alternatingly with other players, trying to use a resource management collection set-based system in order to manipulate your character around the jail. Don't get caught, but also escape out of one of the windows on the tiles in the first place by collecting the resources that you can, you know, slowly gather as you go along. And if you want a shorter, but slightly heavier and thinkier tile laying game, this one might be worth looking. You know, I was pleasantly surprised by this. It's much heavier than it appears in playing in a short time frame. And those two things, again, are a little bit unique that I don't always see. Like, people think tile laying and people go tile laying, oh, that's light, that's filler, that's shorter. Well, you know, one of those things for sure. And if you have interest, you should probably give it a look-see from that aspect. Now we're going to go back over to GameFound. I'm going to give you another little indie game that I came across. It's going to be launching in March as well. And I'm going to mispronounce this, and you'll understand why. Oghmu, the Age of Discordance. And this is sort of, it gives me like MOBA-esque vibes, right? You've got your warband, you've got your scenic battlegrounds, you've got sort of your faction, 6 different factions of asymmetry, where you're going to be utilizing their heroes to fight across a battlefield that's divided via a hex-based system, right? And so there's not a whole lot of actual mechanical details at this point, but I'm intrigued to see what they've got going on, because it says, fast-paced, dice-driven. So again, what is that actually going to look like? Because, these skirmish games with dice-heavy driven aspects, they're very hit or miss. A lot of the other ones nowadays with the MOBA style, it feels like your Guards of Atlantis 2, your Battles of Eternia. I have God Tier sitting up there, right? Those are dice-less. So if you're going to incorporate dice, how is that going to be? Is it going to be straight up number rolling? Is it going to be a skewed dice where you've got like 2 zeros, 2 1s, and 2 2s? What is that going to look like? I mean, the aesthetic is kind of cool to look at right now. And so I'm intrigued to kind of see what they got. This one's definitely flying under the radar. It's probably the one that you've heard least or nothing about at this point. But you know what? I'm going to have my eyes on it, and I kind of want to see what they can show us. So we'll see when it launches. The other one that I have to mention here from Legend Crafters is called Reign of Hades. And the reason that this one is very interesting to me, well, one, we have a whole bunch of like Inferno, Hades, Hell's themed games in February and March, and that seems to be the new one. But this is more of a twist of the classical Greek story, where Hades actually takes over Olympus, right? He comes out of Tartarus and he actually conquers things. And you are one of those fallen Olympian gods trying to, reclaim your divinity and, get back up there. 0 downtime, simultaneous play, 2 players. And 2 to 4, though, because you can play teams on your double dates if you have double date game nights, which my wife and I are starting to try and do with a couple couples. Anyway, but the reason that this is otherwise intriguing to me is, and the GameFound page exclaims this, straightforward right in the beginning, this is from one of the co-designers, co-creators of a few games you may have heard of: Anachrony, Tricarion, Cerebria, and Perseverance, Castaway Chronicles, right? You may have heard those. And so, yeah, I mean, right, the only thing I worry about is that, they're showing out a bunch of plastic miniatures from that aspect of things as all these gods are depicted on your sort of MOBA-esque battlefield. So, yeah, but you've got the heroes, you've got villains, you've got enemies, you've got monsters, you've got unique weapons, special items, 600 cards total. That scares me, actually, because that's a ton of components, but 20 unique replayable scenarios. So it sort of gives me more of a Mythic Battles Pantheon vibe more than anything else. You're going to be utilizing your position on the board, engaging in combat based on cover and maneuverability, simultaneous action, and, either optimizing or requesting support from your partner, if you will. So it also gives me a little bit more vibes of Guards of Atlantis 2, where maybe you might be better off with this game as a 4-player, which again is a tricky player point, because these games often play best as 2. And you're going to have some asymmetric upgrades. You're building your inventory in hand. So, it's checking a lot of boxes for me, but I just kind of wish it wasn't miniature, right? Like, give me tiny meeples, give me just standees, because I worry then it's just more of a price point issue more than anything else, right? But with that pedigree and that player count, with those dynamics, again, going back to the beginning with Wormwood and Etherstone, like, this is my type of game. I just don't really want to pay $150 for it as well when I just got my Mythic Battles Ragnarok and I'm going, I don't know how I'm going to play this, right? Because this is comparable weight, comparable time, and comparable dynamic overlap with your MOBA and the Guards of Atlantis 2, and where does it fit in your collection as well? But that's why I'm super intrigued to see what they can show us. That's it. That's actually 10 plus 1. I gave you an extra 11 games in March. And again, this is probably so far the biggest stacked month. I can't even count. I'm not keeping track. I gave you extra for free today. So yeah, I mean, top to bottom though, like, this is a very, very solid month. And that doesn't even include several of the other things that I got on my radar still for quarter 1. that really haven't had announced dates from that aspect of things. I think there was a rumor originally of Mythic Battles Egypt, although I think that one's actually going to be towards the tail end of the year with them just finishing Conan. Wouldn't be surprised if that's not anywhere near this month or next month. And the other one that's been on my radar here as well, Robot Quest Arena BattleBot, a new expansion from Wise Wizard Games. So that one's been lurking and sort of getting a little bit of attention in the media circles as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's a couple of these expansions, standalones, go-alongs that we've seen that are going to get announced dates even before the end of the month as well. So I love seeing this stuff. There's a couple of these that pop up. Again, I don't know why companies don't announce more than a week or two in advance, because, I mean, you don't want to announce necessarily 3-4 months in advance, but like a month, 5 to 6 weeks maybe, just to let people roll it out. I don't know. And because, sometimes you don't want to go on a date that somebody else has already planned on, or you don't want to have your date stored up so that when you launch, all of a sudden there's 4 other huge projects launching. I don't know if that really matters. It really doesn't. There's so much money being thrown around crowdfunding right now anyway. But anyway, those are my 12, 13, 17, 5, games that I've, got on my radar. And I'm right. This is my favorite month so far. Favorite month, easily hands down so far with these. So there you go. March in a nutshell. Take it for what you will. What are you interested in? What did I miss? Tell me what you missed on this video. Tell me what else I should be interested in. Tell me what else is going to be coming out as well. So we'll see. That's all I got. Stay classy. Have a great freaking day. Play something cool or just relax. You know what? It's okay too. Peace out.